On October 30th, 1938, Orson Welles and the cast of the Mercury Theater program broadcasted a radio play version of H.G. Wells' story, War of the Worlds. The show was done in the style of a fake broadcast commenting on the alien invasion of a small town in New Jersey. While the play was designed to elicit a strong emotional response from its listeners, it unexpectedly caused a panic amongst thousands, possibly even millions of Americans who believed Earth actually was being invaded. Even worse, the chaos around the event was heightened by the sensationalized headlines of the newspaper industry. The perspectives I focused on were those of the American public, the production staff of Mercury Theater, Orson Welles, and the newspaper industry. First off, we have the American public. Not all citizens thought the alien invasion was real. There was a disclaimer at the beginning of the programming, assuring them that War of the Worlds was only a story. However, those who tuned into the show late, as most did after listening to the much more popular Chase and the Sanborn Hour show, would have missed this important bit of information. These unfortunate citizens, the ones who were only privy to the voice of Orson Welles declaring the world was coming to an end, were the ones who rushed out of their houses with a great cry. Their distress was made even more real by the fact that radios, during this time, were often used to deliver bad news, such as economic depressions, wars, and, apparently, alien invasions. After it was released that the fictional broadcast was truly fictional, frightened listeners wrote letters to the radio station, debasing the show and calling Welles a carbuncle on the rump of a degenerate theatrical performance. Next, we have the production staff of Mercury Theater. For the staff, War of the Worlds wasn't an opportunity to start a panic, but just another job at work. They wanted the program to be interesting for its listeners, but only because that's what they were paid to do. The staff had no intention to cause chaos with their show, and they honestly didn't expect the show to cause chaos. One employee was even reported as saying in regards to War of the Worlds, "Just between us, it's lousy. The broadcaster would probably bore you to death." The staff are represented by a wallet in reference to how they only saw War of the Worlds as their next paying job. Next, we have Orson Welles. Mr. Welles wasn't quite as innocuous as his fellow crew members. While they were more focused on getting paid, Welles' primary motivation was making the show a success for art's sake. He went to extreme lengths to make War of the Worlds the most dramatic it could be, even arranging for actor Kenneth Delmar to sound presidential, even though it was forbidden to impersonate the president on the radio. Despite his less than savory methods, Welles didn't plan on using the program to incite a mass panic, and he regretted the chaos that followed, or he regretted the fact that terrorizing the American public might blacklist him. In an interview the day after the broadcast, he spat out, "If I'd planned to wreck my career, I couldn't have gone about it better." Welles was represented by a brochure for Mercury Theater, a reference to how all he wanted was to put on a shocking performance for America. Finally, we have the newspaper industry, represented here by a newspaper. In the 1930s, radios were seen as a rising form of competition to the established newspaper companies. When War of the Worlds broadcasted, newspaper owners saw it as the perfect opportunity to discredit radios. Over the next few weeks, 12,500 newspapers around the country ran exaggerated stories about the event, hoisting sensationalized headlines like "Radio Fake Scares Nation" that displayed Welles and his fellow broadcasters in the worst light possible. While the producers of War of the Worlds mostly didn't intend to shock the U.S., the newspaper industry purposely wanted to incite shock and panic toward the world of radios. Around the radio in the center of the art piece, there are speech bubbles spouting out lines from the infamous radio show. The calmer quotes are on the left, and the more animated, emotional quotes are on the right. I've arranged the perspectives I've discussed in the same way. The more moderate perspectives are on the left, and the more radical perspectives are on the right. From left to right, we can see the members of the American public as they become more anxious and agitated by the show. On the table with the radio, we can see the innocence of the groups behind the chaos of War of the Worlds is arranged in descending order. We have the production staff's wallet on the far left, Orson Welles' brochure in the middle, and the newspaper industry's newspaper on the far right. As for where I stand on the spectrum, I'm here towards the bottom left corner, teetering between the obliviousness of the production staff and the dramatic intent of Welles. I think that the radio station was, on the whole, blameless of the chaos that followed their broadcast. They were just doing their job, and even Welles simply wanted to make an interesting show his listeners would like. Even so, some fault does lie with the station. They should have put in more disclaimer for late listeners, or else realized the limitations of a show where the viewers couldn't see with their own eyes whether it was true or not. As a final note, the majority of this piece is done in black and white, not only because news in the 1930s would have been presented in this format, but to emphasize the strangeness and shock the U.S. populace experienced while listening to Welles' colorful radio show.